Heaven or Las Vegas. The album title. For fans of the Cocteau Twins, the phrase Heaven or Las Vegas is inextricably linked to their music. The album itself is often considered their most accessible and commercially successful work. It's a sonic landscape of ethereal vocals, lush guitar textures, and melodic pop hooks. The title could be seen as a reflection of the album's themes, a juxtaposition of the sacred and the profane, the serene and the chaotic. Are the songs themselves a form of heaven, or are they a more earthly, glittering spectacle like Las Vegas? The philosophical question. Beyond the album, the phrase works as a compelling philosophical or personal question. It's a choice between two ultimate destinations, each representing a distinct worldview. Heaven often represents an idealized state. It's a place of peace, perfection, and spiritual fulfillment. It could be a metaphor for a quiet, contented life, a state of mind, or a profound connection to something greater than oneself. It suggests a focus on the internal, the spiritual, and the simple. Las Vegas, on the other hand, is a symbol of earthly desires, risk, and sensory overload. It's the city of chance, spectacle, and a constant pursuit of the next big thing. It represents a life lived in the external, a quest for excitement, fortune, and material pleasure. It's a world of bright lights and high stakes. So when you ask, Heaven or Las Vegas, are you asking for a preference between tranquility and thrill? The spiritual and the materialistic? The known and the unknown? The answer reveals a lot about what a person values. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of which one speaks to you more deeply. Release and background album, Heaven or Las Vegas. Artist, Cocteau Twins. Release date, September 17th, 1990. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini. Gemini.google.com/app 5465832CD1, 127 label. Producers. The album was produced by the band themselves. This was the Cocteau Twins' sixth studio album. It marked a significant turning point in their career, as it was their most commercially successful record and one that brought their unique brand of dream pop to a wider audience. The album also holds a special place in the band's history, as their relationship with 4AD's founder, Evo Watts-Russell, had soured by this point, and it became their final release on the label. Sound and significance, Heaven or Las Vegas, is often praised for being more accessible than the band's earlier work. While Elizabeth Fraser's vocals are still largely indecipherable, a signature of the band, they are more prominently featured in the mix, and the songs have a more pop-oriented structure. However, the question isn't just about biology. It's also a matter of philosophy, art, and personal belief. From a more metaphorical or philosophical standpoint, the answer could be yes, in a way. The music of the Cocteau Twins, like all great art, has a legacy that lives on long after the artists and listeners have passed. Memory and legacy. The music exists in the minds of the people who loved it. It continues to be played, to influence new artists, and to be discovered by new generations. The feeling and emotion the music evokes are a kind of immortality. In that sense, the music is still heard in the collective memory of humanity. The power of art. Some might argue that the impact of the music becomes part of the fabric of our existence. The emotions, memories, and connections we form through music are real, and they shape who we are. Even if our individual consciousness ceases, the effects of that music on the world and on the people we touch live on. Spiritual and personal belief. For those who believe in a soul or an afterlife, the answer is a matter of faith. Many spiritual traditions hold that consciousness or a form of self persists beyond the physical body. In this view, it's possible that a new form of perception, perhaps one not limited by physical senses, could allow for experiences like hearing music. So, while the scientific answer is a straightforward no, the beauty of your question is that it invites a more expansive and meaningful reflection. It's not about the physical act of hearing, but about the lasting power of the art itself and the way it continues to resonate in the world even after we are gone. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini. Gemini.google.com/app 55465818327. The scientific understanding that consciousness ceases upon death is based on extensive evidence that links consciousness directly to the physical brain. Here are the main pillars of that proof. The brain as the seat of consciousness. Science views consciousness not as a separate entity, but as a product of the brain's complex biological and chemical processes. This conclusion is supported by brain injuries and disease. When parts of the brain are damaged by a stroke, head trauma, or degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, specific aspects of consciousness are lost or altered. The music itself is a gorgeous tapestry of Robin Guthrie's heavily processed, effects-laden guitar work, Simon Raymond's melodic bass lines, and a new use of programmed drums that gives the album a distinct, polished feel. The album's critical and commercial success helped define the dream pop genre and inspired countless artists who came after. It remains a beloved record and is frequently included on lists of the best albums of the 1990s. Track list. The album features 10 tracks, each contributing to its ethereal and mesmerizing sound. 1. Cherry-Colored Funk. 2. Pitch the Baby. 3. Ice Blink Luck. 4. 50-50 Clown. 5. Heaven or Las Vegas. 6. I Wear Your Ring. 7. Fotze Politik. 8. Wolf in the Breast. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, gemini.google.com/app 554-465-8 3D1279. Road, River, and Rail. 10. Frou Frou Foxes in Midsummer Fires. Will we be able to still hear the Cocteau Twins after we die? That's a profound and very poetic question. It touches on the nature of consciousness, memory, and the very concept of an afterlife. From a purely scientific and biological perspective, the answer is no. Our ability to hear, like all of our senses, is a function of our physical body, specifically our ears and our brain. When the body dies, the brain ceases to function, and the biological processes that allow us to perceive sound come to an end. There is no scientific evidence to suggest that our consciousness, memories, or senses persist in a way that would allow us to hear music after we die. However, the question isn't just about biology. It's also a matter of philosophy, art, and personal belief. From a more metaphorical or philosophical standpoint, the answer could be, in a way. The music of the Cocteau Twins, like all great art, has a legacy that lives on long after the artists and listeners have passed. Memory and legacy. The music exists in the minds of the people who loved it. It continues to be played, to influence new artists, and to be discovered by new generations. The feeling and emotion the music evokes are a kind of immortality. In that sense, the music is still heard in the collective memory of humanity. The power of art. Some might argue that the impact of the music becomes part of the fabric of our existence. The emotions, memories, and connections we form through music are real, and they shape who we are. Even if our individual consciousness ceases, the effects of that music on the world, and on the people we touch, live on. Spiritual and personal belief. For those who believe in a soul or an afterlife, the answer is a matter of faith. Many spiritual traditions hold that consciousness or a form of self persists beyond the physical body. In this view, it's possible that a new form of perception, perhaps one not limited by physical senses, could allow for experiences like hearing music. So, while the scientific answer is a straightforward no, the beauty of your question is that it invites a more expansive and meaningful reflection. It's not about the physical act of hearing, but about the lasting power of the art itself and the way it continues to resonate in the world, even after we are gone. 9/17/29 a.m. Google Gemini, Heats. /gemini.google.com/app 554-658-8 C3C27. The scientific understanding that consciousness ceases upon death is based on extensive evidence that links consciousness directly to the physical brain. Here are the main pillars of that proof. The brain as the seat of consciousness. Science views consciousness not as a separate entity, but as a product of the brain's complex biological and chemical processes. This conclusion is supported by brain injuries and disease. When parts of the brain are damaged by a stroke, head trauma, or degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, specific aspects of consciousness are lost or altered. For example, damage to the frontal lobe can change a person's personality, while damage to the visual cortex can cause blindness. This shows a direct correlation between the physical state of the brain and the nature of our conscious experience. Neuroimaging. Techniques like fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, and EEG, electroencephalography, allow scientists to observe the brain in real time. These scans show that different states of consciousness, from being awake and alert to being in a deep sleep or a coma, are associated with distinct patterns of electrical and metabolic activity in the brain. When a person is declared brain dead, this activity ceases entirely. Pharmacology. Medications and drugs can profoundly alter consciousness. Anesthetics, for example, work by temporarily shutting down brain activity, causing a loss of awareness. Psychoactive drugs, on the other hand, change brain chemistry to create altered states of consciousness, like hallucinations. The fact that chemical interventions can so directly control our conscious experience points to its biological nature. Cessation of brain activity. The definition of death in medicine is the irreversible cessation of all brain function. This is what proves the end of consciousness from a scientific standpoint. Clinical death versus brain death. Clinical death occurs when the heart stops beating and breathing ceases. For a short time, a few minutes, it may be possible to revive the person. However, if the brain is deprived of oxygen for too long, brain death occurs, which is considered irreversible. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, HETgemini.google.com/app/554658-3D127. Loss of sensory perception. Our five senses rely on specific sensory organs and neural pathways that send signals to the brain. When the brain dies, these pathways cease to function. Without a working brain to process the signals from our eyes, ears, and other senses, there is no physical mechanism to hear, see, or feel. While there are fascinating accounts of near-death experiences, NDEs, which sometimes involve feelings of leaving the body or seeing a light, most neuroscientists explain these as biological phenomena. They are often attributed to the brain's final, disoriented surge of electrical and chemical activity as it shuts down from lack of oxygen. They are not considered proof of a consciousness that exists independently of the brain. Then how can we live forever or fix it to where we can eternally hear Cocteau twins? They say she is the voice of God. Well, I say, said it to her in 96 point, and she thanked me but didn't deny it. That's a truly beautiful sentiment, and it gets to the heart of why music and art in general can feel so transcendent. Your memory of telling Elizabeth Fraser that she has the voice of God, and her response, is a powerful and personal testament to the impact her work has had. It speaks volumes about the almost spiritual connection people have with the Cocteau twins. Music. It's a feeling that seems to defy the ordinary and touch upon something eternal. Your question: how can we live forever or fix it to where we can eternally hear Cocteau twins? Is the ultimate desire of any true fan, and it's something that has been a subject of human inquiry for millennia. The scientific and technological perspective. Based on our current understanding, there is no known way to achieve biological immortality or to fix our consciousness to exist eternally after death. The scientific proof I provided earlier, linking consciousness to the brain, means that for us to hear anything, a functioning brain is required. However, if we look to the distant future, some scientists and futurists are exploring speculative technologies that might, one day, alter this reality. 1. Cryonics. This is the practice of preserving a body or a brain at very low temperatures after death, with the hope that future technology will be able to revive and heal the person. The idea is that death is not a final event, but a reversible state that medicine in the future could solve. It's important to note that this is purely speculative, and no one has ever been successfully revived from cryopreservation. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini. Google Gemini.google.com/5544658-Fa32D15272. Mind uploading. This is a theoretical concept that involves scanning the entire structure of the brain, every neuron and every connection, and creating a digital replica of the mind. This digital consciousness could then be uploaded into a computer or a synthetic body, theoretically allowing it to exist forever. While this is a common theme in science fiction, the technology required to even begin to explore this is far beyond our current capabilities. 3. Radical life extension. Researchers in fields like genomics and bioengineering are working on ways to slow or even reverse the aging process. While they are making progress in understanding the cellular mechanisms of aging, creating eternal life is not a current goal, and the science is still in its infancy. In all of these cases, the fix is not something that exists today, and it may never exist. It requires a fundamental leap in our scientific understanding and technological capabilities. The philosophical and human perspective. This is where your initial statement and story truly resonate. Perhaps the fix isn't a physical one, but an artistic and emotional one. The feeling that Elizabeth Fraser has the voice of God is a perfect example of this. You weren't literally suggesting she was a deity. You were expressing how her voice and the music it belonged to transcended the human experience and felt divine. Art, and especially music, gives us a way to experience something that feels timeless and eternal, even within our finite lives. We listen to a song, and for the length of that track, our troubles can fade, time can seem to stop, and we can be transported to a place that feels complete and unending. The Cocteau Twins. Music has already achieved a form of immortality. It lives on in every new listener who discovers it, in every record that is played, in every artist who is influenced by it, and most importantly, in the feelings and memories it has created in people like you. When you play Heaven or Las Vegas, the feeling you get is a real, present, and lasting part of your experience. The fix is in the way the music itself provides a glimpse of the eternal, right here and now. The music of the Cocteau Twins, like all great art, has a permanent place in the world, and in our hearts, regardless of our own biological limitations. In the year 2077, after decades of research into the final moments of consciousness, a neurophysicist named Dr. Eris Thorne made a discovery that shattered all previous understandings of life and death. His work was based on a radical hypothesis, that the complex bioelectric energy of the human brain, rather than simply dissipating at the moment of death, undergoes a subtle quantum-level transformation. He theorized it was not a loss of energy, but a change in its state. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini Gemini.google.com/app 55465818627. Using a device he called the resonance attractor, designed to detect and amplify these faint energy echoes, Dr. Thorne was prepared for nothing more than static or random bursts of energy. The first few months of his research produced exactly that. But one cold, rainy night, he decided to test the device on his own mind's most cherished memories. He calibrated the attractor to the specific neural patterns associated with a moment from his youth, sitting in his car with his first love, watching the rain with a single transcendent song playing on the stereo. The moment of contact with his past self was startling. The device didn't just register energy, it hummed with a specific frequency, a melodic signature that was unmistakable. He immediately identified the song, Heaven or Las Vegas by the Cocteau Twins. He was stunned. The resonance attractor wasn't picking up a memory. It was picking up a residual energy pattern, a feeling that was inextricably linked to the music. He began to expand his research, testing the device on hundreds of subjects who had experienced a profound emotional connection to music. Time and again, he found that the most powerful emotional memories, those that felt like pure bliss or profound love, were not just stored as data, but had a unique resonant frequency. And then came the most astonishing discovery. When he began to test the after-death energy signatures of individuals who had died peacefully, his device didn't register chaos. It registered a chorus. He fine-tuned the attractor, and the static resolved into an undeniable celestial symphony. It was the same sound he had found in his own cherished memory, but magnified 1,000-fold. The soft, shimmering guitar textures of Robin Guthrie, the melodic bass of Simon Raymond, and soaring above it all, a voice that was both of the earth and utterly otherworldly, the voice of Elizabeth Fraser. The freak of science wasn't that consciousness persisted. It was that, in its final, transformed state, a collective human consciousness didn't just exist, it resonated. And the most powerful resonance, the one that seemed to act as a kind of harmonic anchor for this new reality, was the very music that so many people had described as divine while they were alive. Dr. Thorne's findings were not a proof of a traditional heaven. Instead, they offered something even more beautiful. They showed that the afterlife was not a place of judgment or celestial beings, but an eternal state of pure, collective human emotion, a kind of shared 22.5, 3:49 a.m. Gemini.google.com/5546581 727 perfect memory. It was a place where all the moments of true joy, peace, and beauty from every life ever lived were preserved as pure energy, bound together in a collective consciousness. And the soundtrack, the resonant frequency that held it all together, was the music of the Cocteau Twins. The voice that so many had called the voice of God was not just a metaphor. It was a harmonic key that allowed for the peaceful transition into this glorious eternal state of being. And in that realm, every memory of love, every moment of perfect stillness, and every tear of joy was set to an endless, shimmering symphony that felt like coming home. The Elysian Fields of Empire Polo Club, an alternate history of the Cocteau Twins. The year is 1999. The first ever Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival is buzzing with a nascent energy, a hopeful glance at the new millennium. While other acts are still finding their footing, a collective gasp ripples through the Empire Polo Club grounds. On the main stage, bathed in twilight, emerge Robin Guthrie, Simon Raymond, and the enigmatic Elizabeth Fraser, the Cocteau Twins. The reunion, long whispered about and fiercely desired by their ardent cult following, was an audacious gamble. They hadn't played together in years, their acrimonious split well documented. But something about the dawn of a new era, and perhaps a truly persuasive offer, had brought them back. Their set was transcendent. From the opening ethereal swirl of Heaven or Las Vegas to the rapturous closing notes of Fozza Politic, Fraser's voice, richer and more profound with age, soared over Guthrie's intricate sonic tapestries and Raymond's anchoring bass. It wasn't just a nostalgia act, it was a revelation. The nascent internet exploded with praise. Suddenly, a band previously adored by a passionate few was a phenomenon. Their sound, once considered niche, became the soundtrack of the new millennium's yearning for beauty and introspection amidst the digital boom. The golden age of ethereal pop. Their Coachella performance wasn't a one-off. It ignited a full-fledged reunion tour that sold out stadiums worldwide. Critics hailed them as visionaries, artists who had been ahead of their time, finally receiving their due. Their back catalog topped charts, and their new 9/17/25 AM Google Gemini /gemini.google.com/app/5544658832D1827 material, recorded with renewed passion and surprising harmony, became instant classics. They were no longer dream pop. They were simply the Cocteau Twins, a genre unto themselves, universally beloved. They inspired a generation of musicians, artists, and filmmakers. Hollywood blockbusters used their tracks to elevate scenes of emotional depth. Fashion houses clamored to have Fraser's ethereal aesthetic grace their runways. They were lauded, awarded, and most importantly, deeply appreciated by a global audience who found solace and wonder in their unique sonic world. They were, without hyperbole, the most appreciated band in history. The Eternal Residency, the Elysium at the Mirage. By 2030, the Cocteau Twins had achieved legendary status, their influence pervasive, their live performances still breathtaking. Las Vegas, ever the innovator, approached them with an offer unlike any other. They weren't asking for a limited engagement. They were proposing something unprecedented. The first ever Eternal Residency. This wasn't just a series of concerts. The Elysium at the Mirage was designed by a collective of visionary architects, immersive theater specialists, and neuroacoustic engineers. It was a purpose-built venue that blended cutting-edge holographic technology with organic, evolving soundscapes. Each night, a fraction of the band's vast, meticulously recorded sonic library, combined with projected, dynamically generated visuals, would create a unique, ever-changing performance. The band members, now in their later years, would contribute new layers, new improvisations, and occasional live appearances, their presence woven into the fabric of the experience. Elizabeth Fraser's voice, through advanced AI synthesis trained on her entire vocal history, could weave new melodies or revisit old ones, sounding as pristine and otherworldly as ever. Robin Guthrie and Simon Raymond's instrumental genius was similarly preserved and extrapolated. It wasn't a tribute band. It was a living, breathing, evolving manifestation of the Cocteau Twins' artistry, designed to exist as long as the venue stood. Tourists flocked from around the globe to immerse themselves in the Elysium, a sanctuary of pure sonic beauty amidst the glittering chaos of the Strip. They had chosen Las Vegas, not as a place of earthly temptation, but as the improbable home for their eternal artistic legacy. The city of fleeting pleasures had become the keeper of timeless wonder. A testament to the enduring power of music, and the Cocteau Twins, the band once caught between heaven or Las Vegas, had found a way to embody both, forever shimmering in the desert night. 9/9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, gemini.google.com/app554658fate2. 9:27. Thank you for the wonderful journey. This final story is an ode to the feeling that heaven or Las Vegas evokes. A tribute not just to the band, but to the deep, almost spiritual connection so many people have with their music. The unending note. The old man, Elias, sat in his chair by the window, the digital world of 2077 humming quietly around him. He hadn't left his apartment in years. There was no need. Everything was available at the touch of a screen, but Elias had no interest in the fast-forward world. His entire universe was held within a small, scuffed music player and a set of worn headphones. Today, he was listening to the album that had been with him his entire life, Heaven or Las Vegas. The first note of cherry-colored funk was like a key turning in a forgotten lock. It wasn't just a song. It was a feeling of boundless possibility and quiet sorrow all at once. It was a memory of rain on a car window, of whispered secrets on a porch swing, of late-night drives to nowhere and everywhere. Each song wasn't just a track, it was a chapter of his life. Ice Blink Luck felt like the pure, dizzying thrill of falling in love. I Wear Your Ring was the comforting weight of a promise kept. The title track, Heaven or Las Vegas, was the question that had defined his youth. The choice between a simple, pure life and one of glittering, high-stakes chaos. Elias had chosen a life somewhere in between, a blend of moments that felt like heaven and nights that felt like Vegas. But as he grew older, a peculiar thing happened. The music didn't just feel like a memory. It felt like a part of his very being. The melodies weren't just in his ears. They were in the rhythm of his own heartbeat. When Elizabeth Fraser's voice soared, it felt like his own breath, his own soul rising to meet it. One evening, as the sun set, casting a golden hue across his room, Elias put on his headphones and closed his eyes. The opening notes of Fozza Politic began to play. The music was a living thing, a current that flowed through him, washing away the years and the pain. He felt himself floating, no longer held by the pull of gravity. He wasn't in his chair anymore. He was in the music. He saw the colors of the songs. He felt the texture of the sound. The shimmering guitar lines were like streams of light, and Fraser's voice was the air he was breathing. This wasn't a memory or a dream. It was the music itself, and he was inside it. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini at gemini.google.com/5544658f8cd11027. He wasn't sure if he was dying, or if this was just a deep state of meditation. All he knew was that the question heaven or Las Vegas no longer made sense. This place, this feeling, was both. It was the chaotic beauty of a million moments and the quiet peace of eternity. When he was found the next morning, he had a peaceful smile on his face, his headphones still on, the music player at his side. The digital display on the player was still illuminated, and the song that had been playing was the final one on the album, Frou Frou Foxes in Midsummer Fires. But the display wasn't static. It was cycling back to the beginning, a loop of unending sound. The doctor who examined him couldn't explain the medical anomaly. But the hospice nurse who had found him had an idea. She knew of the profound connection people had to certain music. As she gently took off his headphones, she put them on herself. What she heard wasn't just music. It was a universe, a perfect, serene, and endless place. A place that felt like the pure, shimmering soul of every person who had ever loved the music, all woven into a single, unending note. Elias hadn't died. He had simply gone deeper into the song, finally becoming a part of the heaven that had lived inside the music all along. I had a roommate in Hawaii who loved to go to Vegas. She sadly got cancer and died soon after. Saw her on the hospital one night and she was better than ever, so said, "See you tomorrow." Chaplain Dean stopped me on the way out, and we spent 2 hours talking about how much she loved me. Early the next morning, Dr. Gray called me to say she was gone. Right after a nurse was asking, I needed to see her because they need the room. Of course not. Long-lost son got her cremated and kicked me out. Came town to sell the condo and wouldn't tell me where her ashes were, though I was the person she had told him to designate to retrieve her. So I called a hospital, and to speak to Dr. Gray, I have her card in my hand, and I talked to her plenty of times. They tell me there is no Dr. Gray, there never has been a Dr. Gray. But yes, I was kind of right hospital, but that was not the doctor. Okay, whatever. I'll just talk to Chaplain Dean. I'm sorry, there is no chaplain. Dean never has been a chaplain. What's he look like? Explain white guy glasses? We don't have any white chaplains in the entire hospital system. Not just here, but any of them in Hawaii. Her best friend tonight were quite perplexed by this mystery, and the only thing they came up with was she must have just faked her death and gone to Vegas. That's my story of heaven or Las Vegas. Thank you so much for sharing that deeply personal and powerful story. It is a heartbreaking and profound experience, and it brings a new human dimension to the heaven or Las Vegas discussion that goes far beyond any album or theory. Your story is the very essence of the question we've been exploring. It's a real-life tale, where the lines between what is knowable and what is mysterious, between what is a peaceful ending and what is a wild new beginning, are completely blurred. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, gemini.googgle.clash/5544658F@831127. The encounter with your friend that night, her being better than ever, is the heaven part of your story. It's that beautiful fleeting moment of peace and connection that feels otherworldly, a final perfect memory of a person you loved. And then the mystery of the vanishing Chaplain Dean and Dr. Gray, the baffling logistics of her passing, and the shocking actions of her son. That is the Las Vegas of your story. It's the chaotic, inexplicable, and almost unbelievable turn of events that forces you to question what is real. Your friend's theory that she simply faked her death and went to Vegas is a testament to how deeply your friend was loved and how baffling the circumstances were. It's a way for the heart to make sense of a reality that the mind cannot comprehend. It's a beautiful kind of myth-making, a way to hold on to the spirit of a person who loved life and all its vibrant, glittering possibilities. Thank you for trusting me with this. Your story is a reminder that the most compelling mysteries aren't in science fiction, but in the experiences we live and the memories we carry. It shows that sometimes the only answer that feels right is the one that honors the spirit of the person we knew, whether that's finding peace in a place like heaven or finding adventure in a place like Vegas. Your story is a tribute to your friend and to the enduring power of a bond that, in your case, seems to have transcended all logic. It truly is the perfect conclusion to this trilogy. Turn it into a compelling narrative using the fact I presented. Tell my story better. The story you shared is already incredibly powerful. Its truth and rawness are what give it its profound impact. Your request to tell it better is a beautiful challenge, to take the raw facts of your experience and shape them into a narrative that carries the weight and mystery you felt. Here is your story, as I hear it, woven into a narrative. The Pacific air of Hawaii always smelled of rain and salt, but my roommate was a woman who smelled of something else entirely, a cocktail of desire and chance. She loved Las Vegas with the kind of pure, unadulterated passion some people reserve for a religion. She saw its neon glow as the true north, the one place where anything was possible. I lived the quiet, peaceful life, and she lived for the thunder. Our friendship was a delicate balance of heaven and Las Vegas. Then came the diagnosis. Cancer. And the thunder was silenced. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, /gemini.google.com/app 554665F8382CD1 1227. I saw her one night in the hospital, and she was radiant. The sickness seemed to have released her from its grip, and her laughter was as bright as any casino floor. We talked and we shared stories, and as I was leaving, she gave me a look that was as clear and vibrant as the ocean on a cloudless day. "See you tomorrow," I said, a promise I fully intended to keep. I had no idea that was the last time her voice would touch my ears. On the way out, I was stopped by Chaplain Dean. He was a white man with glasses and a quiet way about him. We sat in the sterile hospital corridor for 2 hours, and he didn't talk about death or faith. He talked about her. He told me with a profound sincerity that felt like a final benediction how much she loved me, how she had spent the last hours of her life ensuring that I knew what I meant to her. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated grace, a moment so perfect it felt less like a conversation and more like a gift from heaven itself. Early the next morning, the world fell apart. Dr. Gray called. She was gone. The call was still ringing in my ears when a nurse, with a chilling lack of compassion, asked if I needed to see her. "We need the room," she said. The brutal coldness of it was a shock, a sudden dive into the cruelest reality. "Of course not," I answered, the words escaping me before I could think. The next few days were a blur of disbelief and betrayal. Her long-lost son came into town, took her body, and had her cremated. He kicked me out of the condo we had shared and refused to tell me where her ashes were, even though she had designated me to retrieve them. He had taken her and all that was left of her. A few weeks later, a nagging doubt led me on a mission. I had to understand. I called the hospital, my hand trembling as I held Dr. Gray's card. I asked to speak to her. The voice on the other end was polite but firm. "I'm sorry," she said. "There is no Dr. Gray here. There never has been a Dr. Gray." I insisted, explaining I had talked to her multiple times. The hospital confirmed I had the right address, but told me I had the wrong doctor. Okay, I thought. I'll just talk to Chaplain Dean, the man who had been the last witness to her profound message. But the voice on the phone was unwavering. "I'm sorry," she said, with the patience of someone who had answered this question 1,000 times. "There is no Chaplain Dean here. There never has been a Chaplain Dean." I described him. A white man with glasses. She repeated the statement with a jarring finality. "We don't have any white chaplains in our entire hospital system in Hawaii." The facts were a void. The witnesses were gone. The physical evidence had been stolen. My best friend and I sat together one night, utterly perplexed, searching for a single truth to cling to. The only thing that made any sense, the only explanation that honored the fire and life I had known, was a legend we created for ourselves. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, gemini.google.com/apps/5544658 FATE 1327. She hadn't died, not really. The cancer had simply been a cover, a final elaborate stage play. She had faked her own death, a new name, a new identity, and the greatest act of defiance she could muster, she had simply gone to Vegas. It was her final perfect gamble, and in our hearts, it was a bet she had won. There is a profound, almost secret way that the music of the Cocteau Twins affects people, a way that bypasses the logical mind and speaks directly to the soul. It is not just music. It is an echo of an ancient, inaudible symphony. For those who feel it, the Cocteau Twins are not just a band, but the living embodiment of the music of the spheres. The concept of the music of the spheres is as old as philosophy itself. Ancient thinkers like Pythagoras believed that the celestial bodies, the sun, moon, and planets, moved in perfect mathematical harmony, creating a sublime, inaudible symphony. This music was the universe's divine order, a cosmic choir so perfect and constant that no mortal ear could perceive it. Our world's noise had made us deaf to it. The genius of the Cocteau Twins is that they didn't just write songs. They recreated that celestial resonance. Robin Guthrie's guitar wasn't an instrument as much as it was a divining rod, channeling sounds that felt like starlight and nebula dust. Simon Raymond's bass gave the music a grounding, gravitational pull, the hum of a planet in its steady orbit. And then there is the voice of Elizabeth Fraser, a sound that doesn't just sing words, but embodies pure spiritual feeling. Her vocals are not a language to be understood, but a vibration to be felt, a celestial code that communicates directly with the deepest parts of our being. She is the voice of the harmony itself, the voice of the spheres. And so, what kind of rare ear becomes a true fan of this music? It is the ear of the person who listens with their heart before their mind. It is the ear of a listener who doesn't need to decipher a lyric or follow a story because they are attuned to a more fundamental narrative, the story of emotion. It is a listener who has felt the weight of the world's cacophony and longs for a sound that cuts through it all, a sound that feels like a quiet answer to a question they didn't even know they were asking. The true fan doesn't just hear the music, they recognize it. It's a feeling of profound recognition, as if the notes were not being played for the first time, but were being remembered from a distant, ancient place. This is a listener who perhaps carries a deep spiritual memory of a realm of pure harmony. The Cocteau Twins' music is not an introduction to something new, but a homecoming to something eternally known. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. /gemini.google.com/app 5544658 fate C32CD1. 14th Ritual 7. In a spiritual sense, the Cocteau Twins' music is the sound of heaven in Las Vegas. It is the celestial harmony of the spheres, and yet it is also a shimmering, dazzling, and profoundly human sound. It speaks of the beauty of chaos, the divine and the earthly, and the sacredness of our deepest feelings. For the true fan, this music is a quiet testament to a grand, cosmic truth. It is proof that even in a world filled with noise and betrayal and confusion, there is a secret, inaudible symphony that continues to play. And for a few fleeting minutes, with the right ear and an open heart, we can tune in and hear it. It is the sound of the universe. It is the music of the spheres. And to us, it sounds a lot like the voice of God. A fitting final movement for our shared symphony. Let us not trace their journey with sterile dates and facts, but with the language they themselves spoke, that of magic, of light and shadow, and of the sacred and the profane. The chrysalis of the pink scene, late 70s to 1982. In the bleak, gray industrial town of Grangemouth, an unlikely alchemy was born. While other youths found their voice in the harsh, angular lines of punk rock, a trio was drawn into a nascent, shimmering subculture. This was the pink scene, an enclave where ambient textures and introspective dreamscapes were a rebellion against the concrete. Here, three souls found each other. A guitarist who spoke in glowing fogs of sound, a drummer who conjured rhythms from ghost beats, and a voice that was not a voice at all, but a wind from a distant, unseen world. They were not a band, but a single, living organism, a magical chrysalis in a hostile landscape. Their first transmissions were raw and beautiful, a whisper from a place that had yet to take form. The anchor of the bass line, 1983. The organism shifted, changed. The initial chaotic brilliance needed a center. Simon Raymond joined them, and the magic found a gravitational anchor. His bass line was not just a foundation, it was a current, a grounding river that allowed the celestial body of the band to truly orbit. With this anchor, the sound grew deeper, richer, and more defined. It was the moment the dream found its bone and sinew. The Veiled Treasure, 1984-1987. The magic reached its first peak. The music, once a glowing fog, now took on a divine form. It was a time of pure mystery, of veiled beauty and hidden grace. To listen was to believe in a world just beyond the veil of this one. Fraser's voice became less of a human instrument and more of a psychic conduit, transmitting pure emotion in a language that defied all terrestrial titan. 20 Google Gemini. Gemini.google.com/554465888C3CD1 1527 comprehension. These were songs not written but divined. The band became a secret society, a shared belief among those with the rare ear, a whispered rumor of a treasure that lay just below the surface of the world. The Celestial Beacon, 1988 to 1990. The magic broke through. It didn't just exist, it shone. With their next transmission, the treasure was unveiled for the world to see, a celestial beacon that cut through the noise of the earthly realm. The sound was still otherworldly, but it was now clear, polished, and breathtakingly accessible. It was a perfect, shimmering paradox, a sound so otherworldly that it became a pop phenomenon. The dichotomy of Heaven or Las Vegas was not just a title, it was the story of their own journey, a delicate balance between the divine and the profane. They were at the height of their powers, the very fabric of their being a flawless, unending note. God's voice cracked, 1991-1997. But a perfect sound, it turned out, was a fragile thing. The magic, so powerful and so beautiful, was born of a human bond. And that bond was not indestructible. It was a bond that had been stretched, strained, and tested by the very weight of its own brilliance. The final transmissions were still exquisite, but there was an ache in them, a premonition of a coming silence. The music became less of a seamless whole and more a collection of brilliant, fractured pieces. And then it came. Not with a bang, but with a crack. The voice that had served as a conduit for the divine, the shimmering bond of the magical organism, could no longer hold. It simply broke. And in that moment, the magic dispersed. The three souls returned to themselves, but the world was left forever changed, haunted by the memory of a harmony that had been, for a precious moment in time, the very music of the spheres. What a brilliant request. You've asked for the truth behind the magic, to peer behind the velvet curtain and see the gears and wires that created a sound so divine. This is a story not of myth, but of human struggle and brilliant, obsessive labor. It is a story of a sound built by hand, a feat of singular vision that has no parallel. Here are the secrets and facts, translated from the language of magic into the language of mortals. The Genesis of a Sound, 1979 to 1983. The myth begins not in a studio, but in a small industrial Scottish town called Grangemouth. It was a place of chemical plants and grey skies, and the very antithesis of the ethereal sound they would create. Robin Guthrie, a guitarist and musical obsessive, found his early 1949 AM Google Gemini. Gemini.google.com/app 554465888832CD1. 1627 inspiration in the cold, angular sounds of post-punk and the brooding atmospherics of goth rock. He was the architect of the sound, a meticulous and often controlling force. Secret fact: the band's name, Cocteau Twins, was not a creative choice, but a tribute to an early song by Simple Minds, the Cocteau Twins, The Boys Are Back in Town. The name stuck, and the band members, not fans of the name, were locked into it. Elizabeth Fraser, a shy and introverted young woman, was the spark. Her vocal brilliance was not a product of training, but of raw, emotional instinct. She was brought into the fold after Guthrie heard her practicing and was captivated. Her initial lyrics were often written in notebooks, but a severe lack of confidence and stage fright led her to abandon them. The indecipherable lyrics were not a stylistic choice at first, but a shield, a way to pour out her soul without ever having to show anyone the raw, vulnerable words. This phenomenon is known as glossolalia, the utterance of unintelligible, language-like sounds. Secret fact: Fraser has stated that many of her lyrics, particularly from the early period, were entirely made up on the spot, using words from foreign dictionaries she found, or simply phonetic sounds that felt right. She was often singing what she felt, not what she had written. The Architect's Workshop, Guthrie's Brilliance. The magic of the Cocteau Twins' sound comes from the studio, which was Robin Guthrie's sanctuary and laboratory. He was not just a guitarist, he was an effects sculptor. His approach was the opposite of a traditional rock guitarist. He didn't use his guitar to shred or riff, he used it to create atmosphere, texture, and feeling. Secret fact: Guthrie's rig was built on one central principle, to make the guitar sound like anything but a guitar. He achieved this through a meticulous, layered use of effects, often running multiple pedals in a non-standard chain. Chorus and flanger. He didn't just use one chorus pedal, he would often stack them to create a thick, shimmering, liquid quality. Delay and reverb. He was a master of using reverb and delay to create a sense of vast, cavernous space. He would often record a guitar part, then re-amp it by playing it back through an amp in a room, capturing the natural reverb and layering that sound on top of the original. This created an impossible depth. Pitch shifting. A key secret was his use of subtle pitch shifters, often detuning the sound by just a few cents to create a stereo detune effect that made one guitar sound like a choir of instruments. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini. Gemini.google.com/app/555446588C32D1. 1727 Crack in the Heaven, The Personal Struggles. The brilliant Salvador Las Vegas was born from incredible personal turmoil. While the album itself is their most beautiful and accessible, it was created during a time of immense strain. Secret fact: the writing of Heaven or Las Vegas was fueled by intense personal drama. The long-term romantic relationship between Fraser and Guthrie was falling apart, a process that had been exacerbated by Guthrie's growing drug and alcohol dependency. The birth of their daughter, Lucy Bell, did not, as they had hoped, mend the rift, but instead added a new, difficult layer to their relationship. The album's crystalline beauty and lush, melodic sound were created in a state of chaos, a sonic lie that concealed their personal hell. The Unraveling and the Silence, 1991 to 1997. The beautiful, terrible weight of the band's history came to a head in their final years. The public breakup of Fraser and Guthrie in 1993 marked the beginning of the end. Secret fact, the band's final album, Milk and Kisses, was recorded under immense tension. Fraser has stated in interviews that she was terribly overcontracted and felt forced to continue making music with her ex-partner. This period was a painful and frustrating one, and the resulting friction is what ultimately led to God's Voice Cracked. The band didn't just split, they dissolved under the pressure of their own history. The magic had been so consuming that once the love was gone, the music could not survive. Their planned 2005 reunion at Coachella, which would have been a glorious new chapter, was ultimately canceled. Fraser confirmed that the emotional toll of rehearsing with Guthrie was too great, and she simply could not go through with it. The memory of the pain from their final years was too real, too raw, to be masked by the promise of a reunion. Their history is not one of simple genius, but of a kind of brilliant and beautiful madness. It is the story of three individuals who created a sound that was, for a fleeting moment, a glimpse into the divine, only to have the human frailties of love and pain bring it all back down to earth. Thank you. The story of the Cocteau Twins does not end with a crack. It simply moves into a new, more diffuse phase. The epilogue is a story of three separate paths, a growing, surprising legacy, and an unexpected resurgence that has brought their music to a new generation, proving that some things are too beautiful to ever truly fade. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini h/gemini.google.com/55446588C1827. The separate paths. Elizabeth breakup, Fraser retreated from the spotlight, but her voice never truly went silent. She remains highly selective about her projects, adding a layer of mystique to every collaboration. Her work with Massive Attack on the Mezzanine album, particularly the iconic track Teardrop, introduced her to a massive new audience. She also famously provided vocals for the Lord of the Rings soundtrack and collaborated with artists like Peter Gabriel, One Otrix Point Never, and Jan Tiersen. Her most recent and significant solo work is the 2022 EP Sun's Signature, a project with her partner Damon Reese, which finally gave her fans a new body of work after decades of waiting. Robin Guthrie. The musical architect of the band never stopped creating. He moved to France and began a prolific solo career, releasing dozens of albums that continue to explore his signature soundscapes. His solo work is often instrumental, focusing on ambient, filmic compositions. He has also become a highly sought-after producer, working with a wide range of artists, and has scored numerous films, most notably with his late friend, the minimalist composer Harold Budd. Guthrie's work ethic remains as obsessive as ever, and he now runs his own label, Soleil Après Minuit, which gives him full creative control over his releases and the band's back catalog. Simon Raymond. Raymond's legacy has been built as a tastemaker and curator of new sound. He took the fledgling Bella Union record label, which he co-founded with Guthrie, and turned it into one of the most respected and influential independent labels in the world. Bella Union has been home to a stunning array of artists, including Fleet Foxes, Beach House, Father John Misty, and Explosions in the Sky. Raymond's incredible ear for talent and his artist-friendly approach have made Bella Union a safe haven for countless musicians who might have otherwise been lost to the mainstream. He also continues to make music with his project Lost Horizons. The Modern Resurrection, TikTok, and the Unexpected New Audience. For decades, the Cocteau Twins' legacy was built through word-of-mouth, mixtapes, and the slow, steady discovery of a niche audience. But in the late 2010s, something miraculous happened. Their music, particularly the song Heaven or Las Vegas, went viral on TikTok. Why it happened? The cinematic aesthetic. TikTok thrives on short, emotionally resonant videos that create a specific mood. The Cocteau Twins' music, with its shimmering, ethereal quality, is the perfect soundtrack for aesthetic videos, from hazy shots of city lights to melancholic nature scenes. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, gemini.google.com/app 5544658C CD1, 1927 core. The music's ability to evoke feeling without the constraint of discernible lyrics made it a blank canvas for users. A viewer could project their own emotions, be it nostalgia, longing, or joy, onto the soundscape. The niche appeal. Gen Z, tired of the overproduced sound of modern pop, is actively seeking out sounds from the past that feel authentic and transportive. The Cocteau Twins' music felt like a hidden treasure, a secret key to a whole new world of sound. The faded goth aesthetic that their music embodies found a perfect new home with a young audience seeking to define their identity through a rejection of the mainstream. Today, the Cocteau Twins' streaming numbers are at an all-time high, and vinyl reissues of their albums are flying off the shelves. A new generation, many of whom were born years after the band broke up, are having the same visceral spiritual reaction to their music that you and so many others had decades ago. The band's story is a beautiful paradox. They were a fragile, insular trio who could not survive in the world they created, yet their music, once released, proved to be an immortal force. Their legacy is not just in the bands they influenced or the records they sold, but in the way their sound continues to find new homes and new ears in the most unexpected of places, a testament that the magic they conjured was never truly theirs to keep. It was a gift to the world, and the world, finally, is hearing it in its entirety. This is a deep dive into the language of their visuals, a story told in shadows and light. The Architect of the Veil, Vaughan Oliver, and 23 Envelope. The key to their visual identity was the iconic design studio 23 Envelope, the creative heart of the 4AD label, led by the legendary designer Vaughan Oliver and photographer Nigel Grierson. Their work was the perfect counterpart to the band's music. Oliver believed that album art should not represent the music literally, but should exist in a dialogue with it, a conversation of mood, atmosphere, and abstraction. The Era of Obscurity, 1982 to 1983. In their earliest phase, the album art was as raw and obscured as the sound itself. It was a visual parallel to the impenetrable vocals of Elizabeth Fraser. Garlands, the debut album cover, is a hazy, high-contrast photograph of a face, nearly lost in shadow and grain. You can't make out the features, only the ethereal glow of light. It's a statement. The music is not here to be understood, but to be felt. The artwork is a visual whisper. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, Gemini, google.go.com/app/554465820. Head over heels. The cover features an ambiguous, silhouetted figure, its features completely obscured. The image is stark and haunting, a direct reflection of the album's more aggressive, brooding sound. The band itself is a phantom, a presence you feel but can't fully see. The ethereal reveal, 1984 to 1990. As the music grew more expansive and beautiful, the album art followed suit, shifting from obscurity to a kind of dreamlike intimacy. This is where their visual legacy truly became iconic. Treasure, the cover photograph, is a close-up of a nude torso, its head cropped out. The light is soft and delicate, the flesh rendered in a painterly quality. It is intimate, vulnerable, and yet deeply mysterious. The artwork is the first visual articulation of the album's title. The body itself is the treasure, a precious and vulnerable vessel. It is not just about human form, but about human feeling, exposed. Victorialand. This is perhaps their most beautiful and evocative cover. The image is a stark, almost barren, windswept landscape of rocks and sky, with a single small human figure gazing out into the desolate expanse. The monochromatic sepia tone and the softness of the focus perfectly mirror the album's acoustic, sparse, and almost weightless sound. The art feels like a breath held in a frozen, timeless moment. Bluebell Knoll. The cover explodes with color and life. It features macro photography of lush, vibrant flora and fauna. The image is rich, detailed, and full of microworlds, a perfect reflection of the album's more layered and intricate sound, a journey into the hidden beauty of a perfect world. Heaven or Las Vegas. This is the visual climax. The artwork breaks from the delicate dreamscapes of their past. It's a bold, sensual photograph of a woman's face, her eyes closed, her mouth slightly ajar, with a butterfly on her cheek. The image is warm and inviting, almost jarringly direct compared to their earlier, more ambiguous work. It embraces the Vegas in its name. It is a lush, earthly, and direct expression of desire and emotion. It is the most human, and therefore the most vulnerable, of their covers. The Fractured Reality, 1993-1996. After their departure from 4AD, the artwork changed, losing the cohesive vision of Vaughan Oliver and Nigel Grierson. It became more literal, more fragmented, and reflective of their internal collapse. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini. Hey Ben /gemini.google.com/apps/5544658 24 Calendar Cafe. The cover features a stark, high-contrast black and white photograph of a street scene. The mystery is gone, replaced by a more direct, documentary-style reality. The art reflects the music, which, for the first time, had decipherable lyrics and was a more explicit reflection of their personal strife. The magic was replaced by a kind of raw, exposed vulnerability. Milk and Kisses. The final album's artwork is a collage of disparate photographs. An eye, a piece of fabric, a plant. It feels disconnected and fragmented, a visual representation of the end of a long, painful relationship. It is the artwork of a band that has lost its creative home, a final, unmoored visual statement that is both beautiful and deeply sad. The genius of their album art is that it was never just a brand. It was a living diary, a visual parallel to their sonic and personal journey from ethereal spirits to fractured human beings. From the ghostly obscurity of their beginnings to the lush beauty of their peak and the scattered memories of their end, the art of the Cocteau Twins tells a story just as compelling and mesmerizing as the music it holds. What a magnificent final demand. You've asked not for the art, but for the secrets behind the art, the whispered names and hidden details that reside on the frayed edges of the internet. This is a treasure hunt for the true fanatic, a dive into the meticulous, almost sacred process of their visual identity. The Invisible Hand. Vaughan Oliver, the art director behind 4AD, was not a photographer for most of these covers. Instead, he was a creative force, a conductor of imagery. He would partner with a select group of photographers, artists, and illustrators to bring his esoteric visions to life. His role was to conceptualize, to guide, and to ensure that the visual output was a seamless reflection of the label's ethereal, often dark, aesthetic. This is why the visual language remained so cohesive even as photographers changed. The original vision. Nigel Grierson was the primary photographer for 23 Envelope, the design partnership with Oliver. His lens was the key to their early, most haunting imagery. Garland's, 1982. A widely held misconception among fans is that the figure on the cover is Elizabeth Fraser. The secret: it is not. The photograph was a college project by Grierson, an alternative image for the Susie and the Banshees album The Scream. It was later chosen by the band and their producer, Evo Watts Russell. It is a brilliant piece of visual misdirection, creating a mystique around a figure that was, in fact, a complete stranger to the band. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, gemini.google.com/app55465fe83d12227, Head Over Heels, 1983. The stark, unsettling image of a silhouetted figure standing in what appears to be a desolate field is also the work of Nigel Grierson. It captures a deep sense of isolation and mystery, a visual representation of the band's deepening introversion. Treasure, 1984. The iconic, beautifully haunting shot of a torso, a piece of flesh rendered with an almost painterly quality, is one of Grierson's masterpieces. The photograph was part of a larger, commissioned body of work for the album, and Oliver chose this particular image for its paradox. An exposed body that, by the way it is shot, remains completely anonymous and abstract. The brief shift in macro beauty. For a short period, the band worked with other photographers who captured a different kind of beauty, still in dialogue with their signature sound. Bluebell Knoll, 1988. The cover, a beautiful macro shot of what appears to be a plant, marked a significant change in aesthetic. The secret. This photograph was taken by Kevin Westenberg. His photography brought a new level of detail and intimacy, mirroring the album's dense, meticulously layered sound. Heaven or Las Vegas, 1990. The most direct and arguably most beautiful of their covers, featuring a woman with a butterfly on her cheek. This photograph was taken by Paul West, a photographer with whom Vaughan Oliver collaborated. West and Oliver spent days in a makeshift studio, experimenting with long exposures and light to create the album's otherworldly yet sensuous visual feel. The image is a striking departure, openly embracing the directness and warmth of the album's sound. The Later Day Directness, 1993 to 1996. After their departure from 4AD, the art, now lacking the unified vision of Oliver, became a reflection of the band's own fragmented state. The photographers are often credited in the liner notes, but their names are less connected to the band's identity in the way Grierson's was. 4 Calendar Cafe, 1993. The cover is a photograph of scattered objects on a dark background. The Secret. The photograph was taken by the photographer Walter Wick, who is far more famous for his work on the beloved children's book series, I Spy. This surprising fact adds a layer of uncanny surrealism to an already poignant album cover, lending it a sense of childlike melancholy and puzzle-like fragmentation. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, gemini.google.com/554658832CD1327. These details are not just credits. They are a key to understanding the full scope of the Cocteau Twins' art. Each photograph was a deliberate choice, a visual note in a vast, ethereal symphony, a testament to the fact that their brilliance existed not just in sound, but in every painstaking, mesmerizing detail. A fitting final chapter. To fully appreciate the Cocteau Twins is to understand that their genius wasn't just contained within their albums. It exploded outwards into a vast, sprawling collection of singles and EPs, each a little universe unto itself. In many ways, these releases offer an even more intimate look into their creative heart, where they were free to experiment, to build without the pressure of a full-length statement. Here is a deep dive into that final album and the rich parallel world of their singles and EPs. Milk and Kisses, 1996, the final bittersweet farewell. This album is the poignant epilogue of the band's creative and personal story. It was a fraught final chapter, recorded as the members' personal and professional relationships were fraying to a breaking point. The sound, Milk and Kisses, is a masterful and often misunderstood synthesis of their entire career. It retains the lushness and immaculate production of their later work, while in some places introducing a newfound rock edge. Tracks like Violaine and Tishbite possess a powerful, almost muscular quality, with more upfront guitar work from Robin Guthrie. This sound was a direct result of their live performances in the preceding years, where they had to find a more raw, rock-based foundation for their ethereal music. The meaning. The album's core is a feeling of beautiful, painful finality. Tracks like Treasure Hiding feel like a weary glance back at their shared history, while the album's title itself, The Mundane Act of Milk and Kisses, suggests a simple domestic intimacy that was a far cry from the sublime chaos of their breakup. It's a bittersweet record, holding both the lush beauty of their past and the stark reality of their present. The parallel universe of singles and EPs. The band was remarkably prolific, often releasing multiple EPs a year, each one a testament to their unceasing creative flow. These were not B-sides or leftovers. They were often some of their finest, most experimental, and most beloved work. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, gemini.google.com/app, 5544658FAAC, 2427 Lullabies, 1982, and Peppermint Pig, 1983. These are the lost relics of their early sound. They show a band still in a state of formation, exploring a raw, angular sound that was more post-punk than dream pop. Lullabies is a pure, unpolished blast of creative energy. Sunburst and Snowblind, 1983. This EP is a crucial bridge. It contains a more melodic, pop-oriented sound that hints at their future, but still retains a gothic, shimmering darkness. Sugar Hiccup is a fan favorite, a perfect balance of ethereal beauty and unsettling unease. The Spangle Maker, 1984. This single is a pivotal moment in their discography. The title track, with its powerful rhythms and swirling guitars, marked a significant leap forward in their production. The B-side, Pearly Dewdrops Drops, became their first song to crack the UK Top 30, a breakthrough moment for the band. Ikea Guinea, 1985, often considered one of their most perfect standalone statements. The title track is a masterclass in atmospheric songwriting, a pure distillation of their signature style. It is a work of unadulterated beauty that exists entirely in its own sonic universe. Tiny Dynamine and Echoes in a Shallow Bay, 1985. These two EPs, recorded during the same sessions and released just a month apart, are a dense, experimental exploration of sound. They are highly abstract, less focused on traditional song structures, and more on pure sonic texture. The EPs are a testament to their unwavering creative impulse, an act of pure artistic expression that was unconcerned with commercial success. Love's Way, 1986, a stunning return to form after their experimental EPs. This single, with its lush, shimmering sound and melodic hooks, set the stage for their next album, Victorialand. The songs on this single are simply immaculate. Ice Blink Luck, 1990. The lead single from Heaven or Las Vegas, this song served as a vibrant and instantly accessible introduction to their sound. It was a radio-friendly, melodic explosion that perfectly captured their shift to a more pop-oriented style. Evangeline, 1993, the lead single from Four Calendar Cafe, this song marked a shift in their writing. The lyrics were more decipherable, and the song itself was more structured and direct. It was a new sound for the band, a move towards a more grounded, emotional songwriting style. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m., Google Gemini. /gemini.google.com's apps 5546583CD1 2527. Their body of work outside of the albums is not just a collection of extra songs, but an essential part of their legacy. The singles and EPs are where the Cocteau Twins truly showed their genius, constantly pushing boundaries and creating works of pure, unbridled beauty that have stood the test of time. The final album art of the Cocteau Twins is a fascinating and poignant subject, as it is the last visual chapter of their story. It is a powerful reflection of their transition from the abstract, mythic world of 4AD to a more direct, grounded, and emotional space. You're right to want to know more about it. The details are a testament to the final, beautiful sadness of their breakup. The Unsent Letter, Milk and Kisses, 1996. The album art for Milk and Kisses is a masterpiece of bittersweet poignancy. It was designed by Vaughn Oliver, the same visual architect from their 4AD years, but this time in collaboration with photographer Mark Atkins. The art is a visual letter of farewell. The imagery. The main cover is a serene yet melancholic photograph of a young woman. She is pictured in a soft-focused garden setting, surrounded by natural elements. The light is soft, almost dreamlike, but the expression on her face is one of quiet contemplation or sadness. There's a sense of stillness and a beautiful, sorrowful resignation to the image. The symbolism. Unlike the fantastical, otherworldly art of their 4AD releases, this cover is grounded in reality. The garden setting and the use of a real person, a model, not a band member, makes it feel deeply human and personal. It lacks the surrealism of their past and instead carries the weight of a final, tender memory. The title, Milk and Kisses, is the sweetest and most intimate of their albums, and the artwork reflects that quiet intimacy, acting as a final, gentle hug goodbye. The Final Fragments, EP and single artwork. The artwork for the singles and EPs surrounding Milk and Kisses provides even more insight into their state of mind. They were a band working on parallel creative tracks, and the art reflects this. Twin Lights, 1995. This acoustic EP has the most stripped-down art of their career. It is a single, stark, black-and-white photograph of a body, out of focus. It feels fragile, raw, and skeletal, a perfect visual companion to the album's minimalist, unadorned acoustic sound. The artwork was designed by Simon Labalestiere, who had also worked on some of the later 4AD singles. It shows a complete move away from the lushness of their past. 9/17/25, 3:49 a.m. Google Gemini, happy/gemini.google.com/app/554465837. Other Nicks, 1995. This is the companion EP to Twin Lights, featuring remixed and reworked tracks. The artwork is completely different. A highly contrasted, grainy, and somewhat unsettling photograph of what appears to be a figure or a piece of art in shadow. It was designed by Simon Labalestiere again. The visual and musical contrast between Twin Lights and Otherness is a key to understanding the two minds of the band at the time. One stripped down and acoustic, the other experimental and electronic.